It's time for another Zoom chat, and today it's with TSN 1040's Matt Sekeres. I'm Clay Emo. I'm at Canuck Clay on Twitter. I'm at Clay Emo on Instagram. I'm the founder of the GLCPC, the Good Looking Canucks Positivity Club. It's my Canucks take on One Take. It's Clay's Canucks commentary for Tuesday, July the 7th. This is where you get Canucks insight that's positive and timely. And yes, I'm thrilled to resume my Zoom chat series. It's been about 3 weeks, I think, since my last one. And today it's with TSN 1040's Matt Sekeres, very popular radio personality. He co-hosts the Sekeres and Price Show weekdays from 2 to 6 on TSN 1040. His co-host is Blake Price. But today, yes, it's Matt Sekeres. We chat for about 40 minutes, everything from the Canucks to the NHL Return to play to a typical day in Matt Sekeres' life with respect to broadcasting from the TSN 1040 studios. We had a lot of fun, we had a lot of laughs, you'll see, and I hope you enjoy this chat with Matt Sekeres. I'll see you on the other side. All right, everyone, I am thrilled to resume my Zoom chat series with someone who I've listened to for years. I ran into at hockey games, at charity functions. He is the co-host of the Sekeres and Price Show. He's the first part of that. This is Matt Sekeres of TSN 1040. Matt, thanks for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Clay, how can I say no to you? Especially you land the big whales, you get Duffy, you get Dragger, you fish in deep ponds, my friend, and you do pretty well. And I enjoy bumping into you at Canucks games, and something tells me you bump into a lot of people.
Well, I appreciate that. The fishing thing might be my Japanese heritage, but thank you. Living in Steveston in Richmond, of course. How have you been during this COVID time overall, just both professionally and personally?
Well, I have zero complaints, my friend, like zero. I was amongst the luckiest through this. All my family and friends were safe and healthy. Awesome. And not exposed to this. Myself and my girlfriend were safe and healthy. I was able to keep working. I was even able to keep my daily routine. So I count every single one of those as blessings, and don't have a single complaint from my own point of view on COVID. But thank you for asking, my friend.
Of course. And yeah, no, given your hours of 2 to 6, I want to get into that a little bit later when I ask you about your show. But firstly, Matt, just overall, obviously we know you a lot as a local radio sports personality, cover of a lot of sports, a love for the NHL, love for the CFL, NBA, many things. So let's start with the Canucks first, because this is my name is Canuck Clay on YouTube. So people want to know.
Transformation Clay.
When you're looking at the Canucks versus the Wild, the play-in series, is it as simple as the Canucks have the advantage up front and in goal, and Minnesota's the advantage on the blue line, or is that a too simplistic way of looking at it?
See, here's the thing. I'm not even necessarily sure the traditional measurements of who's better up front on defense and in goal necessarily apply here, Clay.
Yeah.
We are into an abyss and into an unknown that we have never come across in the history of the National Hockey League. Yeah, I suppose it's one thing to say talent would float any given team's chance, but I think in particularly something like the play-in series where the teams, let's face it, are pretty reasonably close.
Yeah,
I think our sort of standard units of measure here of who's better here, who's better there, may not necessarily apply. And I also think that we are looking at some pretty significant injuries, perhaps not necessarily having to do with bones and tendons and the type of things that we normally consider injury in the Stanley Cup playoffs. These bubbles have to prove that they're able to sustain health throughout a full roster and sub-roster of Black Aces before I think we can even get into the business of who's on the ice and who looks better up front on D and goal. Like, we may not be looking at the Wild and Canucks lineups you think you're looking at here today as we spitball it.
That's a great point. And I caught some of your show today, and when you had Thomas Drance on and others. Matt, I must say, I love your conspiracy theory of how somehow this revised cap recapture, I call it the cap recapture penalty, how it somehow it doesn't help the Canucks just a week after, 2 weeks after Dr. Bonnie Henry said, no. I love that theory of yours.
In fairness, Clay, first of all, I wouldn't want it to be my conspiracy theory. Appreciate you calling it that, but needless, we had a lot of listeners who wondered, the NHL was seen, BC was seen to embarrass the NHL last week. And I'm sure it wasn't, I'm sure it did not sway CBA negotiations. But I can understand and appreciate why some Canucks fans feel that way.
Matt, having a finger on the pulse of your listeners that you do, I love how you recap the poll questions both on Twitter and on the website. Would you say that's a good majority and almost an overwhelming majority of Canucks fans? They get it. They're happy with the stand that Dr. Bonnie Henry took. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah,
of course. No, most of them get it. It's a smart community. It's a smart fan base. We grew. This community grew up with the game. It grew up with Canucks hockey. So the vast majority of Canuck Nation is pretty wise. I mean, you go back in the day, Clay, like Canucks TV and sort of some of the new outlets by which we got our information. The Canucks were head and shoulders at the top of the NHL in those sorts of endeavors. So this has been a fan base that has been bred over the years to be pretty smart about their hockey team. But, like every other hockey market, especially Canadian hockey market, you've got great intensity of fandom, and oftentimes that brings irrational thinking.
Absolutely. You guys do a great job of highlighting that irrational thinking on your show sometimes. I was going to ask you,
we have fun with irrational thinking.
And I was going to get to this later, but it's a perfect time to talk about it now. You've worked in other markets in Canada, correct? Including Ottawa. Where else, Matt?
Worked in Toronto and Ottawa, and then lived in those two places, plus Calgary and Montreal.
Okay, so there you got 5 of the 7 Canadian cities there, just missing Edmonton and Winnipeg. If you
and I have a feeling they may be missing for some time.
That's fair. I actually like Winnipeg, but
Blake won't like that. He's a Winnipegger. They're very proud.
How would you compare the Canucks fan base? Like we see the fights on Twitter that break out every day, but are these fights happening in your anticipation in those other 4 cities that you talked about?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're happening in all those cities and more. It's just different, teams in different sports. No, that's where the war is waged these days, Clay. It used to be schoolyards. It used to be places that weren't so interconnected with large audiences. But that's where the debates happen. That's where that's where the schoolyard we're better than you. That's where it all takes place now.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to be, type up 280 characters, press send, and walk away and not have to worry about what you said, right? That's the tricky part of it, I guess.
But not you, Clay. Not you.
Matt.
You mean what you say. You say what you mean.
Yes, exactly.
And you're one of the great beacons of Canuck Nation and Canucks Twitter. So that's why I was happy to do this.
Oh, Matt, you're the best. And, I joke around about this GLCPC, the good-looking Canucks Positivity Club, but truly, I'm just averse to conflict. Maybe I don't like conflict or whatever, but no, I certainly will have time for someone's opinion, but as long as it's not stupid or racist or homophobic or sex, that's when it gets a little silly for me. But I have no problem with differences in opinion, obviously.
And Clay, I think that's one of the reasons why you resonate like you do.
Well, I appreciate that.
In our community is that people understand that Clay can see both sides of the issue, that you understand first and foremost, it's just sports, so it really isn't affecting the price of bread in most of our lives.
Yeah.
And, frankly, Clay, we need conciliators more now than ever. Right? People like yourself who bring us together. So.
Well, I appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. The respect is obviously mutual. So if you're a betting man, what percentage would you give out of 100 that we are going to see a Stanley Cup awarded in the middle of October?
Ooh. So here's the thing. I think middle of October would be sort of, that would be right on schedule for sure. I mean, that would be a real meeting of every deadline here. No sorts of delays or anything like that.
Correct.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I would say, I would probably bet against that.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily bet against the National Hockey League not completing its bubble.
Right. Well said.
As much as I've had some qualms with some of the stipulations, as much as Dr. Bonnie Henry obviously had her qualms with what they've proposed. I think what's come into focus here is that the National Hockey League's plan is better than the other major sports plans.
Yep.
The NBA, Major League Baseball, MLS, we've seen significant problems with their bubbles.
Yeah.
Already. Hockey isn't out of the woods yet. Players are testing at too high a rate right now. We still got a bunch of other considerations, including these votes on the proposed new CBA, 6 years of labor peace, which is, of course, much even bigger than this return to play.
Yep.
So, hockey's got to get to the start line, and that might prove the hardest thing here. But believe you me, this isn't a sprint either, right?
Yes.
We're asking them to run an endurance mile after this against an enemy that's pretty wide ranging, has moved pretty quickly, and has pulverized a lot of normal life. So,
right.
Mid-October, I would vote. I would bet against that. If you were to say to me mid-November, that might be something that I'm a little bit more willing to bet on.
Right. Of course, the later we go, then it pushes next season a little bit later, and the important dates, and it might be 2 or 3 years by the time we get back, quote, on track, but at least it's a start, right? Everything that's coming out.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you to put a percentage in. Are the Canucks, what percentage would you give the Canucks to beat the Wild in the play-in series, whenever that's played?
I mean, I hate to sit the fence here, Clay, but like I told you in my first answer, I mean, I think a lot of these play-in series are anybody's best guess right now, depending on who's in the lineup, who's healthy enough and cleared to play.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I do think the Canucks probably win, are probably higher than a 50-50 bet, but I don't necessarily think it's by much.
I'm with you.
55%, something
Sure.
like that.
Let's go with that. So, Matt, I'm not sucking up. I know that you have, I admire and respect the way that you have connections within the team, yet you report on them very fairly. I think of the way that Trevor departed. I think of the way, you were all over the Judd Brackett situation and more. Regardless of those connections, just from what you know and from what you believe, how confident are you in Canucks management overall, that they have a good plan and they're going to help us get and achieve that plan?
I can't say I'm brimming with confidence, Clay.
Yeah.
Look, you haven't been to the playoffs. This would be the first time in 5 years.
Yeah.
I know it was a rebuild, but that's pretty much the far end, the extent of what people get as rebuilds these days as a management team.
Mm-hmm.
You were, with the season paused, going down the stretch in a real tough playoff battle. You weren't necessarily a playoff lock, even if you were a play-in lock, as it turns out. You've got a situation. Look, it was always going to be a difficult situation to get Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes to sign long-term contracts. But, of course, what the Canucks did to themselves on the cap, and now what COVID is going to further do on the cap, this is difficult waters for Jim Benning to navigate going forward here. I'm not sure I'd like a lot of general managers' chances to navigate this. You've got a ton of great young players. That much is true. But are you going to have the surrounding cast, the depth of talent, let alone the assets you can peel to try and excuse me, Clay, to try and to try and see this through and build a Stanley Cup contender? They haven't won a playoff series for a long time, since they beat San Jose in the Western Conference Final. Right? So, I think this is a big job, and they haven't necessarily shown to me that they're up to the task for all that stands between themselves and being a truly, a true cup contender.
No, that's well said. And given your, I'm not asking you to say anything you're not allowed to say, but given your connection with Trevor and how that happened a few summers back, do you think the common folk will ever get to hear the full story, or is that basically what we know is what we
Yeah.
know. And yeah.
No, I think you're going to get to hear that. And I think you're going to get to hear that somewhere down the road.
Yeah.
I don't think he's quite comfortable with it yet. I think he will get more comfortable with it in time.
Mm-hmm.
Also, events are going to happen in time, which may lead to further details and further disclosures.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, no, I've been blessed to meet Trevor on a few occasions, both in charity work. He actually came to my wife's elementary school to surprise the principal a few years ago, and he actually was asking why I was skating around Rogers Arena's ice one year when we were filming our Canucks Christmas wrap video. So I've had some pretty good experiences with him, and yeah, I do like him a lot for sure.
Clay, let me just say that to think that you actually bumped into Trevor Linden at a charity event, I can't say I'm shocked, my friend.
Yes.
I can't say I'm shocked, okay?
No, that's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it, for sure. So, Matt, what other sports are you passionate about? And would you say you're the most knowledgeable about? Yeah.
I mean, I really do like all sports. There are very few sports that I won't watch in some sort of incarnation.
Yeah.
I grew up in a football family. My dad was more football than hockey, but we watched Hockey Night in Canada from the moment I was, old enough to understand all the way up. Along for the ride with those, baseball series in the 80s, Rick Monday, the 85 Jays, and then of course through the series that got us, that got me certainly into baseball. Basketball I sort of gravitated to on my own, but I'm very tall, so that was probably the game I played best, Clay.
And how tall are you?
Where it was the era of Jordan and Magic and Bird, so it became a mainstream sport. So I was always attuned to those. Soccer's been newer for me, a lot newer for me. Because there just wasn't a lot of commercial soccer available. When I was a kid, and I think we're close in the same age, Clay.
Yep.
So, but yeah, no, I'm passionate about all sports, and then I love national team sports when people throw on the maple leaf and compete for a country. I find that compelling, and so this was more calling than anything else, Clay. I liked so much about so many sports. I really, I can't imagine what I would do without this sort of line of work.
Well, and how tall are you, Matt? I'm guessing you're 6'4", 6'5"?
Yeah, 6'4".
Awesome. So you got basically 10 inches.
I'm not giving you my weight, Clay. I'm not giving you my weight, buddy.
All right, let's go. And age-wise, I think I got a couple of years on you. I just turned 46.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
Okay, there we go. I think you're 2 years younger than me, but 10 inches taller than I am, but that's okay. I want to talk about your show now because I do listen to your show a lot, whether I'm at work or driving home from work. So obviously I can't catch all 4 hours, but I think you and Blake have awesome chemistry. That's kind of where I want to start and then get into a couple of your features and maybe a daily routine. But whether it's you and Blake or Donnie and the Moj or the morning guys, for you, what's the key to a good radio, a radio pairing? And aside from just saying, oh, you got to like each other, you got to get along. Yeah. What makes it work between you and Blake in particular, you think?
Well, when you say chemistry, Clay, and I would actually say, you don't necessarily have to get along.
Right.
It does make things easier off air, but there are legendary stories out there of, broadcast duos you might have loved.
Yes.
Clay, that weren't exactly big buddies off the air, didn't spend a lot of time hanging out together on the road.
we heard a bunch of those in the TSN top 40 over the last 15 years or whatever, right?
Yeah. Hey, well, that was more, all of us are going to have our moments where we, where you're sick of the other guy's face and voice. And, those sorts of things, if authentically done, of course, sometimes produce moments where that you guys all remember for most acutely. Look, when you said chemistry is a whole lot of things, and getting along probably does fall on that list to some degree. But it's, excuse me, it's timing.
Yeah.
It's understanding where the other person is going and where you can take the argument. It's filling in each other's, mini blind spots. It's approaching things from a different angle. In some cases, it can be age. In some cases, it can be where you're from. In some cases, it could be culture you're raised in. But there's got to be something about all of those different personality traits between the two people or the three people doing the show that sort of come together and lock, come together and, make music. Can't sound like a screeching violin. It's got to have some sort of, symphony to it. So
yes,
that's what you try and do. And I've been very, very lucky, very, very lucky to work with Blake Price and Barry McDonald as my two partners on 1040. So I drew a great hand. I drew a pair of aces right there, huh?
That's awesome, and that music analogy would sit very well with me. That's a great way of putting it. And why I like you and Blake, Matt, is you're obviously very bright, you're experienced, but you can be sarcastic, you can be fun, you can be witty, you can be very caring and almost pastoral, if I may use that word. So I do think that you guys have a nice mix. And I've heard you guys go at each other sometimes playfully, and sometimes you really dig your heels in. And I think that makes for really good radio. But you're right, it's all about trust, isn't it?
Yeah, well, very much. And that's one of the things. Like, Blake has tremendous trust in me, and I have tremendous trust in him. But really, he's the guy who trusts to a level, because I think early on he realized that I may go at him a bit. I was gonna have some edge, and to Blake's infinite credit, he found a perfect way to counterpunch at me, which has been. Which has been some of the best moments of our show over the years. Blake is too nice a guy to be the aggressor, Clay. He's more like you.
Oh yeah, that's why we would never have a show.
So it was key for him to find a way to deal with me and counterpunch it, and he did it. He's done so magnificently that some days I get beat up, and that's okay. What was the question again, Clay?
No, that's good. You nailed it. That's perfect. I just wanted you to talk about you and Blake. That was awesome. You guys have some awesome features as well. I know every show has to have a few recurring segments that just help, galvanize, help the listeners. But I love whether it's Tell Me I'm Wrong or whether it's the Hot Take Tuesday or the Take 5 Thursday. Not necessarily interested in the genesis of those, but which one of those do you enjoy the most? Maybe it's not one that I mentioned, but which segments do you really, really think really hit it out of the park with listeners?
The one that I most particularly enjoy of late is Take 5 Thursday.
Yeah.
And that's the segment where Blake and I argue different sides of a question before 5 different callers who sit as our quote jury.
Yeah.
We got 2 minutes for argument each, and we sort of presented a little courtroom style. And we give Vander Watt an authority, and he sits as judge for some strange reason. And we keep records, so it's competitive, right?
Yes.
It's the one thing on our show that's competitive. And so we've had a blast with that of late. We've had good questions, well argued. We love when our jurors editorialize and tell us, why they're voting for one of us in particular. But our stalwart, our segment that has been with us from the get-go every day has been Tell Me I'm Wrong.
Yes.
And that was just, it is such the perfect vehicle for getting a sports argument out there.
Yeah.
And it allows us to deal with all the takes on a certain popular subject, to rope in some, things that should probably be talked about on air without having to do segments or guests on them or things like that.
Yeah.
It is just, and of course, the most important thing is that it draws the audience in and it gets
Yes.
them to contribute and help produce the show as much as just sit there and listen to it. So, you know, that's what I'm most partial to. That's why it's every day.
Yes.
Whereas some of the others are once weekly.
Yeah, and just a simple twist, right? Of, hey, tell us something, tell us your take, but frame it almost in a reverse way, so that to cause, you know, create discussion. I think it's brilliant. I think no wonder it's such a staple. So one last question about your show, Matt. Given that it's 2 to 6, I presume there's some prep work and there's some, some post work. But what's a typical day? You don't have to go painstakingly into every detail, but generally, when it comes to the show, what's your typical day like?
A typical day is I'm up at whatever time I'm up in the morning. I'm reading through the day's sports news.
Yeah.
Typically, there's already things happening news-wise back east. Then things start to happen out here on the coast. I'm in the office for 11:30. Some days it's 11. Some days it could be a lot earlier, but provided there's no sort of visit with a sponsor or a meeting or anything like that, I'm in the office by 11:30, digging in the show, and then we go to air. But you know, the thing about it, Clay, is it's not necessarily a 9 to 5 or count up the hours in a given day job, particularly because it changes so drastically day to day. Canucks game, non-Canucks game, summer, Caps, Lions going, big tournaments going, you know, these sorts of things. It's more something you have to live, because you have to be sort of immersed in the, you know, in the industry, into what you're going to be talking about for 4 hours daily. Right, that's a long time to talk about anything daily. Yeah. So, you know, it's got to be something you live to a degree, just to sort of accumulate the body of knowledge that you're going to need to talk about it on air.
And then, so you're there by 11:30, Matt, as you said, sometimes a couple of 3 hours early. Then when Blake rolls in, how much do you actually plan? Okay, this is. Or has Andrew already done laid up?
He's going to hate that, by the way, Clay. He's going to hate that when Blake rolls in. Wow. Okay.
Or maybe he's there already.
Next time you bump into him at a Canucks game, he might not be so friendly. All right.
I say how he rolled in.
That was not me. Or did I infer?
So how much are you chatting prior to show with Blake?
Well, what can I say, Clay? He rolls his ass in, and I tell him, here's what we're going to do. And then he's like, all right.
Well, all I know is I see you two.
There is a group text in the morning.
Okay.
Where Andrew and myself and Blake discuss the guests, the poll question, you know, editorials, a few other pertinent topics.
Very cool. Very cool.
But that, you know, that's what I mean, Clay. Like, you know, the workday doesn't have the free-flowing 9-hour workday,
right?
You know, that regular jobs have. We do 4 hours on air. We know we're going to be in there for 2 hours at least prior to that, so it's a 6-hour day at the office space. But then it's all the time we're spending watching Canucks games, you know, on the telephone at home, you know, reading stories, trying to get story ideas, guest ideas. So.
Awesome. And Blake, just for the record, if somehow you see this, I love you, man. Okay. What I really like, Matt, too, is you've been recording these little vignettes, these 30-second, these 60-second video vignettes, almost previewing the show. You seem like a natural. Do you have any acting experience in your background or anything like that?
Hell no. No, I have no. I mean, outside of a few school plays, Blake actually does have glossies, like 8.5 by 11. He has all the photos. He at one time was, you know, trying out for parts and things like that. And I do believe he got one, including, if you ever get him on the show, ask about the Skoda.
I will have to.
He did, right? Like, you do know Skoda, that Czech vehicle at the World Championships in the corner, right?
Absolutely.
Blake has hawked Skoda automobiles. In a Vancouver-produced commercial, I can assure you that.
Awesome.
So he's the actor with the two, and he does come up with most of the ideas for our videos. Him and Andrew collaborate on that.
Well, as a video creator, as a content creator, I want you to know how much I appreciate the effort that goes into those.
Well, I
videos.
thank you, Clay, but the fact of the matter is I am not the talented guy visually. Just amongst the three of us, that's the two of them. They're the ones who put most of that together.
All right, I will take your word for it, Matt. Okay, let's wind up here. I call it my six-pack only because I don't have a better name for it, but it's basically six.
Like it. No, Clay,
yeah.
I like it. It's six-pack of quick questions.
Yes, you got it, and you can answer as long or as short as you want, and half of them are Canucks related and half of them aren't. You ready to go?
I tend to go long, Clay.
All right, number one. Are you an extrovert or an introvert, Matt?
Oh, extrovert.
Is your girlfriend an extrovert? I met her at the game once before. What's she like?
She's standing over here laughing. I'd say introvert.
Please tell her hello for me while she's there. Thank you. Number two, who's going to be more important for the Canucks going forward? Use whatever definition of important you want. Elias Pettersson or Quinn Hughes?
Quinn Hughes.
Wow, said without a hesitation.
Right now, he totally transforms their blue line.
Mm-hmm.
Without Quinn Hughes, their blue line is not nearly good enough. Losing your number one center would be a huge blow, but they've got more depth at forward, and so it is going to be a while, in my estimation, when you're looking at someone as a number two defenseman on the Canucks, unless they go out somehow, some way, and swing a great trade. It's going to be a while before you get a number two defenseman who is as close to Quinn Hughes as the forwards as currently composed are to Elias Pettersson.
Awesome, good answer. Now, if that was question two, I'm going to make it a 2A, 2B. Does Quinn Hughes have a hope of winning the Calder Trophy this year?
I think he's got a hope. I'm told he's got no chance by my brethren, though, and many of whom are voters.
Right.
I think you can make a case for Quinn. I understand the case for Makar is tremendous, and just sometimes players get an it factor about them, and I think Makar has that for the Calder this year.
Very fair. Question number three: Netflix or Disney Plus?
Netflix.
Yeah. What are you watching? I presume you watched The Last Dance, given your love of basketball.
Yes.
What'd you think?
I thought Michael Jordan was an asshole going into it. I think Michael Jordan is an asshole coming out of it. He's also the best basketball player who's ever lived. He's also one of the great winners in the history of American sport. I think it's a great story.
Yeah. I presume
I think it was pretty well told, all things considered.
I presume, Matt, you knew a lot of those, just covering the league and covering players. I'm sure you knew a lot of those stories prior.
Yeah. I knew. I shouldn't say that. Like, I knew some, but I certainly didn't know all of them. Like that LeBradford Smith story.
Yeah.
Remember that one?
Yep.
Where, so he apparently goes off for a great night, 40 points.
Yeah.
In the first game against the Bulls.
Yeah.
And then they're playing them the next night at the other barn. And apparently the word is LeBradford Smith said, "Nice game, Mike." To MJ. And the next night Jordan goes out and just toys with him, ragdolls him, scores 50, and shuts him out.
Yeah.
And then there was no nice game, Mike. Like, that never happened. Jordan just totally made it up to find motivation the next night for LeBradford Smith. I mean, that's some cold right there.
Yeah, that's
like, that is sort of off the deep end, sort of maniacal competitiveness there.
They're awesome. Number four, if you didn't have to pay, so this guy is going to pay for dinner, who would you rather spend a nice dinner out with? Francesco Aquilini, Jim Benning, or Travis Green?
So here's the thing. I would buy all of them dinner, all right, if they'd like. I'm not sure Francesco lets other people buy dinner, and I understand that. But first of all, I would be happy buying them dinner, Clay, as they buying me dinner, because, here's the thing. You're not supposed to really accept dinners. I think Travis, for me, is the most fascinating guy. I think Travis has a deep intellect. I think Travis, for the most part, Travis is going to have the biggest impact on wins and losses as of right now.
Yeah.
So I would love to sit down and pick Travis's brain, but I think all three men I'd love to be able to sit down and talk to.
I'd agree. Yeah, and obviously we'd have different things to talk to for all three guys. Aquilini, I think I'd be a tiny bit more intimidated. Jim Benning, I think I love his honesty, and I think we get along quite well, quite frankly. But Travis, just the little X's and O's, I think it would be really neat to pick his brain. I would agree with you for sure. Okay, this one, you're not going to offend me either way because I'm half-half, but do you prefer Japanese food or Chinese food?
Great question. I would say Chinese, but really, if you'd given me the choice of Korean, Clay, I may have gone Korean.
And a lot of restaurants fuse all three of them together anyway, so.
I like dishes in all three.
Yeah.
I'm probably not the biggest sushi person. I like sushi. I don't love sushi.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Chinese foods, yeah, the totality of Chinese food, because it's so broad. There's so much different dishes I like in Chinese food. I would probably go there.
Awesome. I just love getting a great food review from a Caucasian man on Asian cuisine. It's awesome. This is the best. And lastly, who's the next Canucks player in the Ring of Honor?
Well, no, wait a second. Clay.
Oh.
Which one? Where would you go if I'm going to answer the question? Look deep within, Clay, and tell me which side are you picking?
Actually, to be honest, Matt, this is an easy one for anyone who knows me relatively well. Japanese all the way. So my late father was Japanese. He passed away in 2004, but he's the one who taught me about the Canucks. I grew up listening to Jim Robson and Tom Larscheid, CKNW, every single game. So he's was Japanese, and my mom's Chinese, so that's half-half. So my last name, Imo, is actually pronounced Imoo in Japanese because of the double O, but I don't say that. It sounds like I can't speak properly. So I say Imo. I get a lot of Aimu and Imu because of the way it's spelled. So it's Imo. And I've been to Japan. I haven't been to China. There's more.
You haven't been?
No, there's more Chinese people in Richmond, as you know, than Japanese people. So I think growing up, I just and being close to my dad, very close, I think the Japanese side always resonated with me. So having said all that, we ate a lot of Chinese food at home because my mom did the cooking mostly. So Japanese food was always a treat for me, and it still is, even though I eat it about 4 times a week. So to answer your question, Japanese food for me, but thank you for asking that.
Clay, first of all, my condolences on losing your father at what apparently was a very young age.
Yes.
But I'm glad you take these memories with you. Secondly, boy, to have opportunity though, or occasion to have both of those culinary foods under the same roof,
yes,
you're lucky.
No, it's true. And people know the history of Japan and China didn't do so good historically. No. It's a rare mix for sure. But thank you. You're the first guest that's actually asked me back one of my questions, so I appreciate that.
But that's, is that not one of the great things about Canada, Clay?
Yes.
We leave old school rivalries where they belong.
Love it.
In the old world.
No, I love it. And lastly, who for you, Matt, is the next Canucks player in the Ring of Honor?
Not having the list right in front of me of who's in, who's out.
I could throw out a few names for you, and you could pick one of these if you want.
Yeah.
I've heard long.
Thinking Kessler has a case if they've all kissed and made up now.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet there would have been a time where Aquilini was huge on Kessler. I'm not sure about where they stand together now, but that seemed like a great moment with Kessler this year with Sydney League. He was a splendid player. The question you run into is the same one you ran into with Pavel is, a player who asked for a trade, wanted out of your team.
Yeah.
And in Kessler's case, with a no trade clause and limited leverage for the club,
mm-hmm.
Do you want to reward that in the second highest level of honor you have? I don't know.
And the other three names that I've heard, Matt, are Luongo, Bieksa, and Edler, if it gets to no one before Edler. So
Well, Edler, you're a long way away.
Yes.
I think, because you're talking about an active player. So let's put that one aside. Nevertheless, he's the all-time defense everything by the time this is said and done. So I think, I think he's got a very fair case. Luongo, I think there's a very fair case for retiring number one.
Yeah.
I am just, I put it this way, I would put more money on the numbers going to be retired.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then the last one.
Bieksa.
I think Kevin was a tremendous player, and I think Kevin has an even bigger personality, and I think Kevin is going to have a magnificent media career. I really do. I think he is going to be absolutely one of the voices of the game going forward. But I would not put Kevin Bieksa in the Ring of Honor if I'm the Vancouver Canucks. For me, he falls a little bit shy of that. Was he ever the number one defenseman on the team?
No.
That in its own right, you ask yourself, Ring of Honor, I mean, it should be for the truly, truly special. And I think Kevin had a splendid Vancouver Canuck career. I just think if you're putting careers like Kevin Bieksa in the Ring of Honor, you're going to run out of space. You're putting a lot of people in the Ring of Honor over the course of a franchise history. Of an era, I understand. He was one of the best players of their era. But over the course of a long franchise history, I think you got to put, number one defenseman, first line forwards, star goaltenders, that sort of caliber of player.
Yeah. Well said, Matt. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and answering every question so well. I hope I'm just
going to have you asked the question about whether my girlfriend is an introvert or an extrovert.
Yeah.
You happened to catch it just as she was at the door going out. Now we established rules in this house whereby this would be my Zoom zone. All right. And she wouldn't interfere with here if I didn't interfere out there with her. And you came close to putting her on camera and interfering, breaking my penalty box here of Zoom calls at the crib. So I thank you for that.
But we're okay. We're still friends.
I also thank you for dropping, when Blake rolls in, because Andrew may clip that, and that might be used on a later show. I mean, I pity your next encounter with Blake, but that's not my problem. Like I said, buddy, off the top, you're such a positive guy. I think bitter bros and betting bros and all sorts of bros, and even a few ladies for that matter, have no trouble rallying around you.
I appreciate that.
You're a great person, Clay. And you're a good community member. And it's clear everything you try and do. So I thank you for having me on the show, dealing with a guppy like me after getting the Darren Dreggers and the James Duffys and everybody you've had do the show over the years.
No, you're right there with them, Matt. But keep up the great work. Say hi to Blake for me. We'll see what happens in the next episode. I might turn on the radio.
Say hi to Blake for me. And look at this. Now we're all right.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what.
How that goes, Clay.
I'm gonna turn on the radio at 2:00 tomorrow, just in case. And I'm not asking you to mention this, but just in case it comes up, I'll be listening. Yeah, Matt. Thanks again. I really appreciate your time. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Clay. Be good.
All right.
I hope you enjoyed that chat. That 40 minutes went by very quickly. Very thankful to Matt for taking the time to chat with me basically as soon as he got home from after his show yesterday. So anything that stood out to you from him, whether it's about Hughes or Pettersson or the bubble or Trevor Linden or return to play or Canucks versus Wild or his typical day with Blake Price. Kind of funny how he went at me it's my fault, I guess, when I said that Blake rolls into the studio. That's not what I meant, but we had a good chuckle about that. So leave a comment below with any reaction to anything that Matt had to say, and I would love to read, react, and reply as always. Subscribe if you'd like to, like this video if you'd like to. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Have a great day. God bless, and go Canucks go.